RA, do you want to lead us and bring us into where the series is at?
We did forget another huge story that you were going to lead off with, RA.
What? Yeah, I don't know if we wanted to do Trotz first, the Trotz bomb. Well, I mean, that's huge news.
I mean, that is just shocking to me. Shocking.
These hoes ain't loyal.
No, it's Lou Lamorello ain't loyal. How about that, Jim? That was a really good rhyme.
Lou Lamorello ain't loyal.
I think if you're that talented, you can make any words rhyme. But Lamorello, he brought him in after winning the Stanley Cup, which I thought, and I think most people agreed, was bananas that Washington moved on from him. And he's a free agent. They'd already promised Todd Reardon at the time. It was not even there now, but a nutso move when you finally get over the top, over the hill, and win the cup. So he goes to Long Island, where I believe they were the worst, if not the worst, the second worst defensive team in the NHL. He completely turns the franchise around. They go to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. They're one game away last year from knocking off Tampa, one goal away, basically. And they get rid of him. And when I saw it, actually, I hadn't checked my phone. I saw a text from Frankie. He goes, they fired fucking Trotz. I'm like, what the hell? Because it made that little sense to me. Since then, I've kind of heard that there was a disagreement on where the team was headed between Lamorello and Barry Trotz. I just find it hard to find any sort of reason that he would think it's after the season they had and the COVID and the injuries and the shit luck. And you can have a shit luck.
They were
a
goal away from being Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, that was the cup final. Montreal was a joke. But listen, after that season this year, where it was so many bad bounces, to decide that the coach was the issue and it was time to move on, I personally think is nuts.
It's not performance-based. There's no way it's performance-based. It has to be about the direction of the team in the future.
So, RA, you probably know more about this than anyone. Julian, he was the head coach of the New Jersey Devils. I'm not sure exactly what year, but they were in first place heading into playoffs about 3-4 weeks before playoffs. And apparently there was a disagreement on maybe some coaching decisions that were being made by Julian at the time. And Julian stayed firm and said, listen, you're the GM. I'm going to coach. And Lou Lamorello fucking canned him and took over the bench.
With 7 games left in the season.
7 fucking games left in the season. So it's weird because, like, you see incidences like that, but then, like, you hear from guys who played for Lou Lamorello and they say he's, like, the most loyal guy.
They love him.
They love him. They love him.
I was chatting with somebody who's worked with him for a while now today. And, like, this guy loves Lou Lamorello. Like, and everyone who works for him and the guys who play for him, there is some disconnect between him, his employees, and his players, and fans like us who are like, what is wrong with this guy?
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Completely agree. And so as soon as it happens, right, we don't know what the fucking conversation was in the meeting. Apparently in the press conference, the word offense came up quite a bit. So I think it's pretty well known that Barry Trotz has a very, very defensive system. He's able to instill that in a skilled group in Washington to where they were able to go on and win the Stanley Cup. But obviously, in my opinion, because they also had the skill in order to get the goals when they needed them, and they figured out how to play defense to enough degree to where they could, sustain playoff hockey. Years and years had gone by where they tried to play the run and gun style in playoffs and it didn't work. They found their coach. They got their guy. Bingo, bango. I will say with the Islanders, it is to a level of like New Jersey Devils, but almost even worse, suffocating, boring hockey where in today's NHL, you got to also find a way to generate enough chances. And I don't know if that's actually being done under Barry Trotz with the group of guys he has there. Now, another thing, I don't know how much say that Trotz has in guys in the lineup. Now, you look back to the Devon Taves trade, I would say probably easily the worst trade of last offseason, 2 second-rounders for a guy who probably most people had making Team Canada. Like, that was a colossal fuck-up trade. If he's getting information from Trotz on whether he likes to use him or not, and that's basically why they got rid of him and he was the decision, maybe those types of opinions in the meetings that they're having weigh in effect on the fact that he might have gotten canned. Another thing that comes to mind, I know I talked in the past about maybe the conflict between Barzal and Trotz and how much offensive reins he can have. Tell me I'm a fucking moron, but I think that has some type of impact in the whole type of decision that was being made. because if these guys, and Whit, correct me if I'm wrong, we're very naive to think that Lou Lamoriello didn't meet with the entire team after the season and talk to each guy individually what they thought and where they thought the team was going, although Lou said that had no bearing in the decision. Do you fucking believe that shit?
I feel like that guy doesn't lie. I feel like he doesn't really care, and he makes up his mind and makes decisions that he doesn't really care if people disagree or agree with him. I mean, think about what the story you told about the Devils. Like, nobody in their right mind would have told them that was a good idea. So maybe talk to the players, and we'll never know if what they said, or they even did say things that they didn't necessarily love playing for Trotz, and that got to Lou to decide to make a change. From the outside looking in, though, they had injuries and all these other legit excuses this season. And next year they could have come back with a very similar roster and gone on a run. So here, the question is now, is Lou has such a successful career that you can't judge him until we see who he brings in and how next year goes. If next year's awful and they're healthy and they have a bad start and it's the same thing, it's like, what were you doing? Right?
Oh, completely agree. And even going back to the fact that, like, he's obviously got a very honest path. I was just kind of like trying to figure out what would lead him to end up making the decision. Right. And yeah,
we'll never know. That guy's a steel trap. What's the password? Keith, the worst name in the English language.
What do you got, all right?
In his media appearance, he said the team needed, quote, a new voice. And he said he didn't consult with anyone, didn't speak to the players about the decision. He only told the owners they were going to do it. Of course, it's Lou. They let him do it. He said, I would rather not get into any of the reasons. This decision was not primarily made on this season. So, I mean, it must have been something lingering long time that's been there. So either way, it's a shock. A guy with the third most wins all time after Bowman and Quenneville. So who do you think is going to replace him? I wrote a few names down here. Babcock, current assistant Lane Lambert.
Mr. Borelli. No, I'm serious. You guys think, I got a tip.
You know where Trotz is going? You know where Trotz is going?
Vegas.
Unless they win the Stanley Cup, Florida Panthers.
You think so? Well, hey, what about
what about Edmonton or Toronto if they don't get out?
Hey, shut the fuck up, Merles. You're on the Toronto bandwagon. Sheldon Keefe's going to get an extension after this run. So shut your goddamn mouth.
I mean, every team's going to want this guy.
Yeah.
Goes without saying. But he's going to basically have to end up deciding, do I want to go to why wouldn't he decide to go to a team that he considers a contender?
And I'm pretty sure one of the worst rules in the NHL is going to factor into this. He still has a year left on his deal. Somebody has to like reach out to Lou, and then they have to negotiate on what they're going to get in return to get him as a coach.
When you fire, yes, you're still paying their salary.
It is the stupidest fucking rule in the NHL, other than the 5-minute major call.
What about if two Montreal Boston rivals? What if Boston fired their coach? They're still paying the guy, and they do not want Montreal to have him for some reason. It's like I can kind of see where that.
Well, that would have to have been signed in a non-disclosure agreement, or not the non-disclosure. What the fuck am I talking about? Basically,
you're in jail.
Basically, you would have to like sign that previously. But I guess going back to Lou's decision, he seems like the type of guy then to wake up with a gut feeling and then just, hey, act on it. And he's like, hey, I made the decision. It's final. Let's move on.